really a journey to become Muslim. From my experience, it's quite a long one. It's not like you suddenly think, do you know what, let me research Islam, I think I want to be Muslim. Like, that is not an entry point for anyone, I don't think, unless they're doing it for somebody else, which is not something that I would ever wanted to have done it for a person, right? It doesn't make sense to do that. I was atheist, and I really thought for many years that religion was the cause of war, that anybody that really followed a religion was quite brainwashed. I mean, I really did have your stereotypical view of what I had picked up from bits of the media. And because I was never someone that really watched the news too much, the only time I did was when it was a really big event like 9/11 or something like that. So I only ever got glimpses, and I also never knew any Muslims growing up. But I did always believe in some sort of force. I believed what goes around comes around, and that everything happens for a reason. I'm someone that never really, although I had plans, I always knew that what was meant to happen for me would happen. So I did have some sort of belief, but it wasn't in something specific. And I think really the misconception that Jesus is God and all of that stuff, because I really didn't understand Christianity or any religion, to be honest, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I never really looked into them. But it just so happened that when I moved to London through university, I met, I became friends with Muslims, but I didn't realize were Muslim. Okay, and that's people are always shocked by that, but not every Muslim is wearing a hijab. Not every Muslim is really practical, and that was meant to be for me, like, because probably had they have been super practical, we would never have become friends at that point in my life. We would have been from two different worlds. But it just so happened that it got to a point where when I finished university, I found out, and it was at the end of my 3 years of uni, I found out that the people that I respected and that I kept close and had chosen to have as friends were Muslim, and they were all from different parts of the world. And I don't like to be naive, so I'm somebody who very much, I like to understand everything, whether it's good or bad. I'm not someone that will just believe something I'm told. If you tell me something, the first thing I'm going to go and do is go and research it. And so I realized, well, actually, these people that are close to me are Muslim, like, I should probably understand a little bit about what that's about, rather than what my presumptions are, because my presumptions were really quite negative, right? I did think that the women were kind of forced to cover, and that kind of broke it for me, because I was like, oh, wait, hang on, these are my friends, they're Muslim and they're not covering, right? And so I started to research religion as a whole, not just Islam. I read about Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism. I was watching different lectures and like different, you know, like those interfaith shows like Yusuf Istas and people like that. And then one of my friends said to me, come with me to the mosque, and she took me to a mosque. And actually, my first couple of experiences at mosque weren't great, because the first one, they spoke in another language in front of me rather than speaking in English, which I just thought was really rude. And the second one, I went just to see what it was like, and I had someone shouting at me, haram, haram, because I had nail polish on. I knew nothing about Islam. I just went to kind of see what it was like. And I was given a Quran, and I took it and I read Al-Fatiha in English, and I was like, no, definitely not, because Al-Fatiha just says Allah, 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 like just too much of God for me that I wasn't ready for. But I went traveling. It was really quite a long kind of journey for me. But then I was reading something. It said Allah is not a he or a she, but it would be rude to say it. Therefore, in English language, because it's not the original language, right? In English language, when we talk about God, whether it's in whichever book it's in, it said he. And I was like, oh, God's not human. Like, it was kind of my first like kind of light bulb moment, because it was as he, you relate he to being somebody, right? So I was like, right, hang on, let me go back and replace this Allah or God as I'm reading it with the force that I understand. So I got rid of this misconception in my mind of God being human, and put the force in my mind and started to reread it. And as I reread it with that, it all pieced together. And that really was a kind of major turning point for me. And the more I read about the negative things first. I went straight into jihad. I went straight into the fact that a man can have multiple wives, the hijab, like anything which, alcohol, not being allowed to be drunk, like all of the things which to me were like, And as I read them, I was like, wow, they're actually really beautiful. Like when you understand the depth behind them. And from there, it was just a kind of learning journey and process of kind of really going through. And each problem that I'd faced in my life, I realized that if myself or any of those people that had been involved in those issues had have followed Islam, they wouldn't have had these problems in the first place. And so it was just really beautiful. It was really eye-opening. But the final kind of point for me was really understanding the science in Islam, because I believe in science, right? Because I have physical evidence of that. You don't always have physical evidence when it comes to religion. But when I realized that these physical evidences that I understood and knew were mentioned many years ago, way before we'd even discovered it or been able to test it, I was like, well, hang on a minute. Like, there's something a lot deeper here. So yeah, that was my real final turning point, was the science.